very much, Brian. Before we get over to Christine, Marsha has a word for everybody. Marsha, what do you want to say to everybody?
Join Lobster Farm is the best.
All right, good job. All right, now to Christine. Passion for pets.
Thank you so much, Howie. Actually, before we go to that segment, we are going to do my Inspirational Woman segment. So, Ellen, thank you for being here again. Thank you. Dr. Ellen DeFrancesco is here tonight to talk about something that's very near and dear to her heart. She has started a new website that I think is just fantastic. Busy mom, wife, 2 daughters, 2 great dogs, and yet you have found the time to create a new website to help all of us that are trying to be eco-friendly. So Ellen, why don't you tell us a little bit about the new website? What's it all about?
Thanks for having me, Christine. My website is called Living Clean and Dirty, and I write about all the different ways that you can go eco-friendly, that you can live a cleaner life and live a more holistic life. And I do it in a way where I use a lot of adult language, hence the Living Clean and Dirty. And I do it because I'm a very funny person in the respect of I enjoy humor, and I think that if you can make something funny and you can teach a lesson at the same time, that the message is heard more. So I believe I go by the motto of educate and elevate. And so I'm trying to teach people and help people live a cleaner life. And I try to do it where I make you laugh at the same time.
That's great. That's great. So Ellen, why don't you tell us what the craziest Eco Warrior thing is that you've done?
The craziest thing I've ever done was I've decided to make my own deodorant. And I used to keep it in the refrigerator because it would melt. And unfortunately, my husband may have enjoyed my deodorant on his bagel a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've decided, it was something that we used to joke about, my husband and I, well, don't go around making deodorant. And I took the plunge and I decided to make my own deodorant.
That's a great
and
idea.
It's fantastic.
Wow, and Mark lived to tell about it. That's so clearly there's nothing in there that's going to harm anybody. When you decided to create this website, what is the most shocking thing that you found out about living a holistic lifestyle?
Well, I started it where I wanted to be cruelty-free, and so I love animals.
As I do.
Yes, way more than people. And so I wanted to make sure that all my products and my personal care products were cruelty-free. And what I found was that a lot of times a product will say it's cruelty-free because the final product wasn't tested on animals. But if you do a little bit of digging, and I'm not talking about a lot of investigative research, but just a little bit of digging, you'll find out that all the ingredients that went in to make that product were indeed tested on animals. They just say they weren't tested on animals because the final product wasn't. So you really have to kind of just be a little bit more savvy, do a couple of research on the internet, a couple of searches, and you will find there are plenty of ways to find companies that none of the ingredients and the final product were not tested on animals.
That is a really great point, Ellen, and thank you for making that point, because I also discovered that sometimes it's a little bit, it's misleading. The labels aren't necessarily telling all the truth. How do you start living cleanly for those of us would like to live cleanly?
I think the best way to do it is baby steps. One thing at a time. So you choose one little step, one little thing that you can do, that you can incorporate in your lifestyle each day. Tiny, tiny steps. You don't just wake up and suddenly decide, today I'm gonna live eco-friendly and throw everything out. Instead, you take little steps each day and incorporate it in your life. And that way it's not this grand, huge thing that you're doing. Instead, you're making it more of your lifestyle. So although it might seem silly, one of the things I did was, and I talk about this on Living Clean and Dirty, is I keep a water pitcher next to my sink. So instead of throwing down all the water that we don't drink or all the water in the water bottles, and I want to give my kids fresh water, I put it in there and then I water my plants with it. And I have to tell you, I may be eco-friendly, but gosh, do I kill plants. I have no green thumb. And this reminds me to water my plants, and they are actually surviving.
That's a great idea. And of course, before we talk about what we're feeding our pets in my pet segment, you do have to tell us what your favorite meal is.
My favorite meal is a bottle of organic wine.
Great answer. Great answer. I'm right there with you. So part of